Just so you know, welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
I'm Jamie.
I'm Justina.
And this is Just So You Know, a podcast where we delve deep into issues affecting animals today and expose individuals and corporations for their BS.
Calling them out.
So this episode, guys, today is about bullfighting. We're going to go through what it is, the history of it, why it's unnecessary and cruel, which is obvious, you would think, but also some of the weird, shady shit that goes on in this category of animal abuse. So before we get to our guests and before we get into the episode, how the hell are you, Justina?
I'm good. I'm overwhelmed. It's been such a crazy week. We had our launch party for our podcast. It was the best time. Did you have fun?
I had so much fun. It felt like our wedding.
It was our wedding.
It was the union of us.
Yes. I literally wore a white dress. I just thought about that. I literally wore a white dress.
I wore a dress of Justina's that was a little low cut, and we looked back at the photos and my nipple was out. And I want to say 2/3 of the photos are like unusable.
It's okay. That's why people stayed at the party, because, the nip slips. Hey, free the nipple, free your soul. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess I do feel a little bit more free now that like half of the animal rights community that we associate with has seen my boob. But that was a highlight of the party.
Yeah, it was so cool to have like so many non-vegan friends there, like singing our songs, jumping around, enjoying vegan food.
Oh my God. Spicy Moon, Lower East Side, go to it. Fantastic. They catered the whole event. It was very fun. So we're just coming off of a high from that and got to get back to the grounding. I did a yoga class with my friend Adita, very grounding. I said in the class, I was like, I'm like on such a high from everything, and then things go low, and I'm like, I need to find some middle ground and balance.
Right.
So prepping for this episode was definitely traumatic, to say the least, because it requires really watching how bullfights work and seeing what these animals are going through. So what are 5 things that you know about bullfighting?
Well, the first thing that I think I know is that it's a very highly charged, toxic, masculine debacle. I don't even know what to call it. It's just like, it's very, you instantly are like, oh, this is toxic masculinity at its finest.
I mean, these men are in bedazzled jackets. They have like freaking like tight pants. They're like as tight as yoga pants.
Which is fine. That part is okay.
Okay, but like, yeah, they're trying to like act all macho and masculine, whatever. They're exploding with glitter.
Right.
And then they're killing vulnerable animals.
And trying to, masculate yourself, but you're looking very, very weak. So that's one thing I know.
I would like to say, while they're trying to show off their manliness and whatnot in these god-awful outfits, we also see that some of these matadors get gored in the testicles. Talk about losing your manhood.
It serves you right.
And so, just as an example, I do have to bring up this guy, Marco Golan. He was gored in the testicles. He was released for the hospital. Somebody asked him, how manly are you now, Marco? And he says, it was not such a big deal, although it caught me in the back in a very painful area. In the end, I just needed to have my scrotum sewed, he told local newspaper. I'm like, you could have avoided this whole thing by just like leaving animals alone.
Yeah, pick another career choice, bro.
Your ball sack could have been in one. You could have.
It is in one, right?
Well, I think it's technically in one, but there's 2 balls.
Yeah, we know that part.
And like, we could have like avoided the entire rip if you just like didn't get involved in bullfighting. But like, this is what they deserve, in my opinion.
If you're gonna do this, then your balls should be ripped.
We're gonna get into the specifics of what they do before the fights, during the fights, and after the fights. But it's not really a fair fight when you think about it. If you have to put newspapers in their ears to give them like a sense of a lack of hearing, if you have to put stuff in their eyes to make it hard for them to see, if you keep them in dark rooms and then release them into an arena with bright lights, it's not really a fair fight.
Right.
They also put like weights on them to make them weaker.
I didn't know that.
I'm like, of course they're going to get killed in this ring. It's not, and then the matadors have these large swords, and so yes, we'll get there. It's very cruel. So another fact that we have is that bullfighting is supported by millions in European subsidies. EU subsidies are given to these bullfighting breeders, these people that raise the animals, and that is what actually helps to support the industry. And not only that, but top matadors can make over 100,000 euros to do these per fight.
That is fucking twisted.
Exactly. So why I'm also really excited to do this episode now is because it's current. So you have bullfighting. It's banned in many places such as Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Canada, Denmark, Italy, the UK. They have banned bullfighting. However, it's still a big problem in Spain, France, Portugal, Colombia, and Mexico.
I heard about Mexico.
Mexico. There was just a New York Times article that came out about Mexico City, how they now are having bullfights. It's from January 28th to March 24th. I know. And 73% of Mexicans support a national ban on bullfighting.
That's really fucking fishy.
Yeah, and since 2013, several of Mexico's 32 states have banned bullfights. So it's just, it's like, what are you waiting for?
Right. It sounds like very much like mafia, like some underground shit. Like,
it is.
Why is this happening still?
It is. Okay, so my next fact is that there are a few different types of fights. So no one bullfight is technically exactly the same.
Right.
But one type of fight that they have is called a bloodless fight, where they don't actually kill...
Bloodless fight?
Yeah, they don't actually kill the bull inside the ring, but all the bulls in the bullfighting industry end up slaughtered. That's just a fact. They all get killed, whether it's in the arena or when they're dragged off and taken out of there. They are sent to the slaughterhouse, processed, and their meat is usually used. But that's just a fact. So it's not bloodless. There's nothing bloodless about it. They're killed.
Right.
So yeah, that's my third fact. This is a really interesting fact, guys. Listen up.
Uh-oh. I hate when she acts like that. I feel like she's setting me up for destruction of my soul.
Get the tears ready. We are brainwashing children as young as 8 years old in bullfighting schools, where they are exposed to violence and they go to these bullfighting academies. And not as if that's not horrible enough, but when you think about the mistakes that are made, the stabbing in other parts of the body where the death might not be as quick, it's horrific.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it when you said brainwashing, because most kids inherently know, like, hurting animals is absolutely wrong. So we are brainwashing the kids. That is twisted.
Mm-hmm. Did you see the PETA video where the activist ran up to the Pope and tried to get the Pope to condemn bullfighting? How fucking epic. I don't care how holy you are or how close you are to God. If you support this industry, I got a problem with you.
No, you're doing this for your entertainment, and how dare you call it art?
Well, I believe art should be used to expose atrocities and draw attention to pressing issues.
Right.
Art can be done in so many different ways. We just did an artistic installation inside of Grand Central where we were speaking up against the dairy industry, and art should capture attention and as I said, expose certain industries where needed, where necessary. So let's get into what bullfighting is and what happens before the fight, during, and after. Mm-hmm. So before the fight, there are many different techniques that are done to the bulls to weaken them before they enter the arena. So some workers rub petroleum into their eyes to actually obscure their vision. Mm-hmm. And they give them tranquilizers sometimes, laxatives, and drugs that induce paralysis or a hypnotized state. In a way, I'm like, I don't know what's worse, like giving them a fair fight where they can actually defend themselves or be sort of high. So
well, definitely give them a fighting chance, because they will fuck you up.
Anybody that spent time with these animals know that they're not evil and they're not gonna try to hurt you. They're actually really loving, kind animals. And when they're angry and when they see things running around, then like anybody else, they're gonna get upset and react.
Yeah, they're gonna protect themselves. Like I remember watching a video of a bull going into, going into like a tunnel, And you could just tell he was so scared, and like it really, really messes me up when I see these images and videos of these bulls. And
it's almost as if their deaths are celebrated and people in the crowds are whistling and drinking and having a party, and they don't actually think at all about the individual. And I think that's part of the problem. If they did, and if they recognized that these animals have sentience, feel pain, then they wouldn't be able to do the things that they do to them. So before, hours before the fight, I was watching Ferdinand, the cartoon movie last night about bullfighting. When they put Ferdinand in the ring, I lost it. Like I really started crying.
I've never seen that movie.
And I don't cry a lot. So it's a beautiful little cartoon. It's meant for kids, but it was just a kind of good way to help me understand the issue in more of a fun way, and to be able to explain it to people. So hours before the bullfight, they're held in tiny, dark isolation cells, and they're not given much food or water before. They're confused. They're anxious. The bull obviously misses the company of his herd. They're just before entering the building. Sometimes they're even harpooned, which causes them to bleed. And then they're just released into this like huge arena with tons of people. It's a huge crowd. There's a lot of drinking, a lot of shouting going on. It's scary. And then during the event, I'm going to give a quick rundown, and in a few minutes, I'm going to have our first guest, Carol, come on and explain what it's actually like being at one of these events, because she's been in person. But just to give you like a technical rundown of what happens. So the entire event, it can last for hours. I mean, it really, it depends. So you got the opening ceremony. Sometimes there's 6 bullfights in one night. People usually pay anywhere from 20 euros to 120, give or take. Depends where they're seated, I guess. So each matador, which the matador is the guy at the end with the big sword that does the final kill, he has 6 assistants. So they help to make it easier for him to do the kill at the very end. So after the bull, he enters the arena. He's obviously looking around, all scared. And then he sees these big blanket-looking things almost. They're like cloths or fabric that
like little cloaks, like the
that the picadores that they wave around, the assistants of the matador, and they wave them, and then the bull will charge at it, not because that he doesn't like the color of it or anything like that. Bulls are actually colorblind, but he charges at it because he's obviously agitated, confused, and that little bit of movement, I guess, brings his attention over there.
Right. It's just a natural instinct if you're already in a state of chaos.
Well, then what happens next to them is that you got these guys on horses. They're called picadores, and they drive these huge lancers into the bull's back, which that's like the first method of attack. And that will usually make it so that the bull can't raise his head up. So right then and there, they just injure the bull until he can no longer fight for himself. And then these assholes run the bull in circles, basically, until he becomes dizzy, exhausted, and weak from blood loss. And then the matador, which the term matador actually means murderer.
What?
The art of murdering.
Are you serious?
Yep. And the matador will then use his sword to deliver the final death blow, and then the crowd cheers.
The people who are going thinking that this is something to celebrate and be excited about.
How about tourists, too, go to some of these things because they think it's cultural and traditional. And we're going to also talk about how culture and tradition ties into this and how it's actually allowed bullfighting to be protected. So not only that, but then the bull is paralyzed. He might even still sort of be alive and conscious. And then the fucking matador cuts his ears off, or the tail, and like waves it around. And then they hook the bull up to mules or horses and then drags his lifeless body off of the out of the arena. That's bullfighting.
I honestly don't know how anybody doesn't feel completely, like I said, embarrassed that this is still happening.
Well, and that's why I want to present the facts to the audience so that they can decide for themselves and see for themselves. And obviously we'll talk about the solutions as well of how we can help with this pressing issue.
Right.
So after the bull is killed and dragged out of the arena, he's processed at a slaughterhouse. From there, the meat, depending on the situation, it can be distributed to vendors, processed for pet foods, animal feeds, sometimes for humans. There's this new organic craze where people are like, it's like a trend or like
To eat bulls?
To eat bulls from bullfighting. There's a restaurant in Spain, and they call the bull meat carne de tora de Lidia. I'm so sorry about my accent.
It's okay. Mine is not going to be any better.
But it means meat from a bull killed in a bullfight, and they're proud of it, and they sell it, and they're proud of what they are selling. It's insane.
Well, you're quite literally full of bullshit if you consume that. I mean, all animals, but like, damn, this bull was killed out of pure entertainment. It's so sick and twisted.
So let's get Carol Raphael Davis on the podcast and to tell us more specifically about what it's like being at a bullfight. She's going to talk about how violent these protests get when you try to speak up and when you try to just advocate for kindness for the animal, have mercy. She's going to talk about what she's dealt with at some of these places. So we'll be right back.
Thank you for having me, first of all, to cover this really important issue, which I believe, and many people who are in the anti-corrida movement agree, that it's ground zero for the animal rights movement and the animal liberation movement and the anti-speciesist movement. So thank you for covering this issue. It really is important, even though most people watching this have never been to a bullfight and will never go to a bullfight.
Right.
It's important that people are educated about this issue. You're asking me what it's like to go to one of these bullfights. I've been fighting this issue for about 25 years.
Wow.
I've been active in the anti-bullfighting arena for that long, and the only way to stop it is to join our campaigns and to join an organization that's doing this. So to answer your question, what it's like to go to one of these things, first of all, one has to understand that when you're arriving at a bullfight in France, by the way, as a sidebar, a lot of people don't realize this, but France is the main country where bullfighting is occurring.
That's crazy.
Did not know that.
I feel like a lot of people are going to be blown away by that because we instantly think
Spain.
It's a Spanish thing, and I thought it was in Spain.
Yeah. It's not legal in northern France, but it's legal in southern France as part of a special judicial dispensation for areas that have been involved in a prolonged manner in this, what's called an art, for hundreds of years. So they keep doing it. It's part of the culture there. And I'm saying culture with a grain of salt. It's as a French person, I'm absolutely embarrassed at the fact that this is considered an art by the European Union and is subsidized by the European Union as an art form. So they're using these ancient Roman amphitheaters where they used to, murder people, gladiators, lions, people fighting bears. This is the bloodlust continues. So this is just a new, not even an adaptation. This is an art form that is continuing to be practiced around the world in these specific countries.
So Carol, these, when we go to protests here in America, we have rights, we have our rights protected. If you're on the public streets or sidewalks, you can chant, you can protest, you can really speak up against issues how you wish. You have freedom of speech. When you go to these bullfighting rings and you do a peaceful sit-in, or describe some of the backlash that you get from the police and the aficionados that support bullfighting.
Okay, thanks for that question. First of all, the rights that we have in Europe are very different than the right to assemble here in the United States. Here in the United States, you can be as many people as you want. If you're on public property, you can just come. You don't need a permit. In France, months ahead, we have to get permits to protest. That's really important that you have a written agreement that you're allowed to protest. And then they'll tell you where you're allowed to protest, what kind of signs you can have, etc. So when we go to these anti-bullfighting protests, we like to be as many people as possible because it's harder for them to control us that way, even though we have a permit. So we like to be at least 800 people strong to go.
Wow.
So know that you're going to an ancient Roman amphitheater. There are thousands of aficionados, they're called, the people who buy tickets to this abhorrent art form where they stab bulls to death for fun. And the people are already drunk by the time they get there. Sometimes the feria will last a couple of days, so they'll have tickets for a show that's lasting several days. And
Sounds
they're
like
very
it.
loud, they're very drunk, and it's mostly men. They do bring their families, but mostly it's men going with other men.
It's men to see men in these leotards that have explosions of bedazzles on them.
You keep talking about the fashion. The fashion part is not even my problem.
I can't get over the fashion part. They like the way that they do this weird dance and the costumes, and it's this whole glorified event of simply murdering an animal. That's what they're doing.
It's masking. It's trying to mask and making it like that's the only way I could see how they could get away calling it an art form.
Get your fucking bedazzles off and put on a fucking butcher's outfit and show yourself you're basically a slaughterhouse worker. That's what you are as a matador or picadores or whatever.
I was going to say, we mustn't forget that as an art form, the costumes are a big part of it, as well as music. You know, they'll have a big band, they have costumes, and the music is there really to drown out the sound of the bull who's going to die and who's being stabbed to death.
Apparently the red blanket that they wave in the air, that's also to make people distracted from the blood that's all over the place. That's why the color's red, not because the bull can see the red, but simply because the color's red. So Carol, why don't you offer some solutions that we can do as the general public to help this cause? How does maybe tourism play into this? What can we do?
One of the ways that people can get involved in stopping this is to go on whatever country you're going to the embassy's Twitter feed and say, you know, I was planning a trip to France, but, you know, I don't want to go to those places where they have bullfights. Will you tell me where I can go where they don't have that? Because it's really disgusting and embarrassing and terrible. I don't want to go. So don't spend your tourist dollars in towns that have amphitheaters that are used for these kinds of events. Just don't go to those towns. Don't go to their restaurants. Don't go to their towns. Don't go shopping there. And then tell them, go to their respective Twitter feeds, because social media is important. For example, if 100 people today went to the Twitter feed of the U.S. Embassy of France, which is the French embassy in the United States, on their Twitter feed, if all of you listening to this went to their Twitter feed and said, I had no idea that you had this disgusting thing going on in France. I'm never going there until you stop it. They would have a meeting about it.
They would have to have a meeting. So we're going to do that. We're going to go to the embassy pages, blow them up on social media. What is the second thing that we could do to help?
You can talk about it. You can tell people to never go to one of these things.
Okay.
Do not give them your tourist dollars, and contact government officials where they are doing it and telling them that you will not go there until they stop it. You can also help activists who are going. We are trying to get over 100 American activists to come to Rodillon in October in southern France. We're trying to get activists from all over the world so that we can have an international delegation to go with our respective flags, so that when we go, we are showing a United Nations against this type of cruelty. And I honestly believe that if we stop this kind of cruelty, because it's the only animal cruelty that is there, that exists for the pure enjoyment of animal suffering. It's the only one. There's no excuse about food. There's no excuse about biomedical research. There's no excuse about needing leather or medicine or anything like that. This is pure fun for these people.
Well,
pure unmitigated enjoyment.
Thank you so much, Carol. And we are so grateful to have people like you in the movement who are such a badass, freaking badass activist. I look up to you.
Seriously.
You've inspired me over the years. Thank you so much, Carol.
Thank you so much for covering this issue.
So Gabe Ochoa, he's the manager at PETA Latino, and he's going to talk about this in more detail, more specifically of what's going on currently in Mexico. He's going to talk about the bullfighting schools and kind of cover in a little bit more detail for us. So we have some questions prepared. And when we come back, we will be here with Gabe.
Hi, Gabe. Thank you so much for being here. And just let us know a little bit about what you do and what drew you to this specific topic.
Thank you for the invitation. What we do in PETA Latino is we do select campaigns in different countries against bullfights. We do media. We do social media. We organize or coordinate protests with other orgs in different countries, Peru, Colombia, and Spain, Mexico, of course. I'm from Mexico, so I'm very interested in that area too.
So there's a lot happening in all different places and countries. I want to just ask you personally, what drew you to this issue? I mean, it's such a violent cause to begin with, as most issues affecting animals, but why is this important to you?
Well, it's important to me because I'm Mexican and I know my people, I know my family, I know my friends. I grew up in Mexico. I know no one likes bullfights. Sometimes offensive that they say is like a traditional part of our culture, but it's not. The only time I was in a bullfight ring in Guadalajara, it's my city, it's because I went to see Soda Stereo. It's super popular rock band from Argentina. It's
No, you're like, I'm not going there to spend my free time, and thank God. So, I mean, I think tourism plays a lot into this because people do think it's cultural. They're like, oh, well, I'm in Spain or I'm in France, and this is something that they do. So I want to experience this. So there's an event in July. It's called the Running of the Bulls. Pamplona, I think is what it's called. Can you explain what that is and why people should avoid that? I mean, it's really sick and actually scary and very dangerous.
Right.
But what is the Running of the Bulls?
It's a trap for tourists. I think it's a festival.
Right.
People think they're just gonna run the streets with the balls and it's gonna be they're gonna have
It's
fun. But balls also get hurt in this. And at the end, all the bulls are killed in bullfights, and people don't know that. And people that are who for first time watch a bull they're not just killed, they're tortured.
Right. That's
A bull
the
being
thing.
tortured for 15, 20 minutes and then killed in a horrible way. And it's traumatic.
It is traumatic. And not only are they, having adults participate in this, but now they're having children participate in bullfighting schools at the young age, in some places as young as 8 years old.
That's terrible. They're teaching kids, indoctrinating kids to kill, how you as a parent can take your kid to a place where they're gonna do you use a word desensitize? Is that the word?
Desensitize, yeah.
A kid to kill someone.
Right.
It's killing someone.
Exactly.
And we know that people who have killed animals can kill people too.
Yeah, it's a trait.
So
They start with animals. There's
terrible.
one reason that this industry is even still in existence, and a huge reason, is because of the European Union subsidies. How many subsidies are given to this industry? How do we ban it? I know that there was possibly going to be a ban on some of the subsidies. Maybe just talk a little bit about why the hell we're giving money to this.
Because they consider bullfights as art. Also, they got millions of euros to the people who breed these animals. And they're people who has a lot of money, a lot of power. And they receiving more money, more power to keep this horrible event alive.
Well, there's a term.
It's really interesting.
There's a term called intangible cultural heritage. Have you heard of it?
Exactly. It's in Spain. With this heritage consideration, they can ban bullfights in community cities or provinces.
They can't, right?
They can't. And so there's a movement right now to try to take off this heritage consideration.
How many matadors actually die during the practice, and like how dangerous is bullfighting?
It's not common. It's not common that someone is gonna die. Sometimes people get hurt, but it's not something that happens a lot. As you mentioned, there is a lot of process, the levels, where the ball is weakened. When the ball is in front of the matador, the ball already lost a lot of blood.
Right.
In weight. It's weak.
So it's not a fair fight.
It's definitely not a fair fight.
It's not.
We talked to Carol about messaging, calling, tweeting, talking about it. What else is there?
Go to protest, write to your legislators, and support the online petitions. Talk about it, as Carol said, in social media with your friends. Just spread the message. And there's a lot of people that has not an opinion on that, but when they have the information, they realize that this is terrible. Right. And I don't know if this is gonna be important or not, or interesting, but I would like to talk about a little bit of the weapons that are used.
Yeah, bring it up. Let's go.
And bullfights. And the first weapon they use against the bull is called the divisa. The divisa is like a harpoon, a double harpoon, that before the bull enters to the ring, it's
Put into the shoulders.
Stabbed into them.
By the guys on the horses.
No, it's before the horses. It's before the bull is even inside the bull. And it's the measure is like around 3.1.
Oh, he's got the measuring tape out here. He is showing us visually how big that is. That's insane.
Imagine you have this.
Whoa!
And he's got the knife. Oh my God. Imagine that inside your back.
Imagine you have this in your back.
I can't even handle a needle.
She can't even handle period cramps.
Yeah. Why do you keep talking about my period cramps? They've gotten better since I've been vegan. I don't have as intense period cramps.
Okay, listen to Gabe.
The tip of the spears that you mentioned is 3.5. It's going to be something like this.
That's insane.
But it's not the only part that goes inside of the ball, because it's going to go a lot more deeper.
Oh man!
Oh my God.
This is gonna be inside the ball multiple times. In the first of the three sections of the bullfight, then comes the guys who put more harpoons, banderillas, and banderillas is also something like 3.5.
Right.
But it's gonna be they're gonna harm the ball. The wound is gonna be a lot more.
The fact that people have the audacity to say, oh, they don't feel pain. Oh, they're bred to be tough. It's like anybody that has a freaking sword in their back is going to feel pain.
Sword. Right.
The sword is going to be like 30.
Oh my God. This is like the worst way to go. I mean, I'd
I
rather
don't
be
have
like,
even the space for this.
I'd rather be shot in the head or something. This is just torture in front of mass audiences.
And that's going to be in her back again, and trying to cut the aorta. Is when we see the blood coming out of his mouth. It's because he's drowning. He was hurt with that. And that doesn't kill the bull. Is another sword with the tip is something like that. Is stabbed in between the vertebrae of the bull, and that's gonna paralyze the bull. That's gonna make the bull go to the floor, but it's not gonna kill it.
Okay, let's get to the kill.
And at the end, there's another. It's a knife. It goes right to
the head,
to the brain.
Yeah.
In most of the cases, even this, the bull is still alive. It just can't move anymore.
So violent.
And he is dragged out of the ring, bleeding and paralyzed. And many times the bullfighters, if they are considered that they did a good job, they cut the ears, they cut the tail, and these ears and this tail are shown like a trophy.
I know this is really hard to listen to, you guys, but this is just the reality of it. And if we don't discuss it, we give power to these industries. We give power to the fact that they make it this performance art and that it's, something that it's cultural to go to. It's like, no, this is violent and this is what happens.
Right.
So, Gabe, thank you so much for coming on. This was extremely, extremely informative and breaking down, I mean, even just down to the measurements of like what these swords look like. And people can now decide for themselves how they feel about bullfighting now that they're presented with the facts. Thank you, Gabe. And guys, when we come back, we're going to wrap it up. That was so hard to listen to.
Yeah.
That was
Holy shit.
I mean, like I told you, like this last year in particular, for whatever reason, like the bulls have like lived in my brain. I really want to do something about this story, like about their perspective, because it's just I'm overwhelmed. I don't even know what to say.
Well, that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about it. And I mean, I see bullfighting, especially after this entire episode, it's like a man's need or attempt to control, manipulate, and assert dominance over nature and over another individual. It's like the human race is by no means the strongest out of all these creatures. If you were to put one of those guys in a ring with a bull and without drugging the bulls and doing all the weird shit that they do to them beforehand, if you were to actually let it be a fair fight, I don't know if I would have my money on the human.
And there wouldn't even be a fight. The bull would be like, what the heck am I doing here? Like they don't want to fight. We're the only ones who want to fight for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, we've built up this superiority in our heads of this dominance over other creatures, over all living beings. And, this idea that man is superior to all things, it's it's false. And I think that all things on earth should be respected, and we need to recognize that they have a right to be here too. Right. And we didn't even get into the horses that are also routinely drugged to do these kind of sports. I mean, the horses get injured too because the bulls with the horns go into the sides of the horses. There's a lot wrong with these fights and a lot that needs to change, and that's why we want to talk about these issues. And we're so grateful that you guys have given us your full attention. If this bothers you, I want you to think about the fact that, these bulls, one could argue that, well, they spend some of their years as in ranches free, and then they're killed in the ring. Ultimately, at the end, they meet their death. If you're not okay with that, then you really shouldn't be okay with the millions of cows and millions of animals killed every year for food that never see the light of day, that never have grass under their feet, that ultimately just meet their violent end inside the slaughterhouse behind closed doors. It's all connected and all unnecessary. We want to hear from you guys. Do you think that this is an art form, or do you think this is a fucking massacre? Definitely mention us in the comments. We want to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening. Please rate this podcast, subscribe to it, like it. All of it helps because we're still fairly new. Yes. So we want feedback.
Yeah, please comment. Let us know if you supported and why. If you do supported, let us know if you've been to one of these bullfighting experiences and what you've taken away from it. We want to know your perspective, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us about how you can make a difference, and please stay informed, continue to educate yourself.
Yeah, and take action. So without further ado, I'm at It's Jamie's Corner.
And I'm at Justina.
Be sure to toss PETA a follow as well, and we'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be back.
I'm going to South of France.
She's on her way.